Oh my goodness.
Hi.
Hi, are you ready, gorgeous?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna get my official opening, and we're gonna get to it. All right, hello everybody, and thank you for joining us for Chattable, Hollywood Stories, Insights, and Overshares. Fingers. Um, what is Chattable, if you are wondering, is just an opportunity to have a conversation with notable industry guests. Brought to you by the team at ACS, Actors Comedy Studio. I am Gunnar Rohrbacher, your host, also known as Gunnar the Comedy Coach on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Today's guest is notable. She's talking to one of her companions right now. Stellar award-winning actor and animal rights activist, among other things, and dear friend of mine, Miss Elaine Hendrix. Hello, Miss Elaine.
Hi.
Welcome to Chattable, and thank you for joining us today.
I'm so happy to be here.
Oh my goodness, I have so many questions for you. I scarcely know where to begin. Oh, let me tell the audience too, by the way, so we'll have this conversation, and since we're in webinar format, there is a question and answer panel. So if you have questions, drop them in the Q&A as opposed to the group Zoom chat. And we also have Tiffany Berube moderating today, so she's helping us out behind the icon right there. And if we have time at the end of the conversations, I'll get to as many questions as we can, but no guarantees or promises, because, you know, it's not that formal. So my first question for you, Miss Elaine, it's been a while since we've had a chance to chat. Where in the world are you?
So I'm in Atlanta. I've moved here officially. I've signed up to get my license. I'm transferring my voter registration here because everybody's got to sign up to vote. Everybody's got to register to vote. I've formed my new corporation here, so I am back to being a Georgian.
So Southern.
I know.
Okay, cool. And is that, you might know Miss Elaine from, so many TV, film credits, stage credits. She's also a fabulous theatre actor, but also currently you are Alexis Carrington on the CW's Dynasty.
I am. It's kind of crazy.
We've got to talk about that a little bit. And are you shooting in Georgia?
We are. So I relocated here it's coming up on a year now. And because I joined, I guess a quarter of the way through. And sorry, you'll hear my furry ones. I joined about a quarter of the way into season 3, and now we're doing season 4, and it's located here. So that's why I'm here.
So, I mean, I grew up watching the original Dynasty. What was it like to step into an iconic role that had been played by somebody else, multiple people actually prior?
Well, when I look back on my career now, I've actually played several iconic roles, and that was not by design, but like I've been a part of, it's just kind of cool to sort of like stop for a minute and go, wow, yeah, I have been a part of some major Hollywood franchises. The remake of Get Smart, SNL, the buddy movies. I was part of, the Air Bud franchise, the Beverly Hills Chihuahua franchise, Get Smart franchise, Munsters franchise, and now Dynasty. And so I approached it like any other role that I've done. And so hold on one second.
She's got to get the critters.
I know. I don't know what's going on back there. I gave and maybe that's it. I gave everybody treats so they would be quiet, and they're being anything but. So I approached this as I do any other role, in that I just was creating a character. And then it wasn't until like really after the fact that a lot of people said to me, like, you look like you have always been on that show. It must have been so hard for you to just step right in. You did it seamlessly. Wow. And it's like, yeah, I guess I kind of did. But for me, I'm just doing my job.
Well, I gotta say, you seem like you're having the time of your life to me. doing it. I mean, it's great. You're a great actor. That's covered, but it just is. It's so much fun to spend time with.
I'm having a lot of fun doing it for sure. I mean, the wardrobe and the hair and makeup alone. I spend 2 hours every morning going through hair and makeup, and I'm in clothes that I can barely breathe in, but it's all worth it.
The wardrobe is fantastic, and some of the hats just make my jaw drop. I like a good hat. So, well, can we talk just a little bit about like working in this particular time? How has that been? Are you shooting? Were you on pause? Did this the pandemic disrupt a shoot schedule?
Yes. Like everyone else, we shut down March 13th. We were in at the end of our 20th episode. We had 21 and 22 to go because we're an actual like real network show where we still do 22 episodes. And they shut us down, and we've been shut down ever since. And I actually 15 minutes ago got an email from our executive producer that all of the COVID protocols have been approved by all the guilds and by the network. And now we are officially going back to work in about a month.
Oh, about a month still.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just, being here in LA still, it's interesting. People were doing Zoom meetings, taking advantage of opportunities just to actually be quiet more than we usually are and just talk to people, meet with people. Then auditions slowly started to come up, but they were, network auditions, but they were still dates to be announced. Mm-hmm. And literally just last week, I started coaching people on roles that had dates attached.
Oh, wow.
People are actually going back to work. Lauren, as you know, is also a studio teacher. She went back to CBS series last week. So the wheels in Hollywood literally just started actually turning at the network level really kind of last week.
Well, that's good to hear. And I know in other parts of the world, productions, I think everybody is just trying to figure it out and find out a way. I mean, Tyler Perry, who has a studio here in Atlanta, went back a couple of months ago, but he put everybody on his lot, put them in a bubble, but he does like an entire season in 2 weeks, which is just mind-blowing to me, but he did it.
Since Chattable is an informal conversation, I'll just tell you, Lauren's beau, Nelson, worked on the Oval. So he got in a private car on a private plane, flown to Atlanta, and then, sequestered, quarantined, daily tested, shot a whole season of the Oval and in 2 weeks and came home.
Wow. It's mind blowing.
Yeah. We had the real-time account. Say what?
I just said, it's mind blowing to me.
It's mind blowing. Everything was like one take. You show up, get it. And he was like, that's it. We're moving on next scene.
Yeah, that's how Tyler Perry does it. I have a few friends who work on, I have one friend in particular who works on the Haves and Have-Nots. And then several of our crew people here in Atlanta, I think a lot of people like cut their teeth over at Tyler Perry. And it's like, they don't worry about continuity. He's got at least 4 cameras going at the same time. You get no rehearsal, one take, in and out, boom. And if you are not on point, woe be unto you.
Well, the other people who started, back to work on sets too, were the soaps. And I have some on the soap. So Young and the Restless, Bold and the Beautiful, and General Hospital were really actually on the front lines in the entire United States of America of getting their actors back on set first. And I've also heard great I guess really anything in life is a risk, but everything I've heard from everyone who's been on all union sets is the protocols are really strongly adhered to. Everybody's feeling good about work, and I've heard all good news and no bad news. So
Yay.
in a you know, in a tough, strange time, it's heartening, and it's also these are my friends, your friends, so it's great to know that people are going to work and feeling safe,
Yes.
and then they can then be free to feel good about the work they're doing, and that matters to me. So
Yeah. Well, I've been quarantined pretty much the entire time, and I'm antsy to get back to work, but at the same time, I'm really interested to see what it's going to look like and see how I feel through it. Because, I mean, for me, COVID is a real concern. And I mean, on our show, we're a nighttime soap essentially, and everybody is sleeping with everybody and scheming. And there's always, somebody up in your face. And again, in this email, he's like, be ready. There's a lot that's changing. And it's like, oh my God, I can't wait to find out. And then I can't wait to see how I feel about it through the process.
on I'll just share this anecdote, and there's a clip if you care to find it. So on the daytime soaps, there were two options for the intimate close-up scenes, especially since they started like a couple of months ago, which was even a little more brave. So it's either to actually bring your own partner who you've been quarantined with, should you have one, to set and make out with them. Or there is one example, and I forget which show, so I won't say because I don't want to throw any shade, but there is a it's a clip of one of the lead actors making out with a mannequin.
I've heard about that. So it's true, because I've also heard both of those stories, and I'm like, I think I would take option C, none of the above. Like, that's just
Your own hand.
my dog, Huckleberry. I choose Huckleberry. So, yeah.
Well, whatever gets it over the line. We are creative people. So yeah, but the guy out with the dummy was kind of a little bit more than I could take. But it made me laugh. Is your hair bluish?
Yes, it was really blue, and now I had to stop putting the blue in it because I've got to like prep to go back to like being icy blonde.
Grow up, Elaine. You you're an adult, vicious nighttime. What's actually funny is like your version of Alexis doesn't seem vicious. She seems bemused.
Well, I have played so many vicious people. I told them, I said, I really would love to bring some other colors to her. And I think we've kind of swung on one end of the spectrum. And I've said, okay, now we need to like bring some viciousness back into her. So apparently apparently they said I'm going to be very happy this season. So
Okay.
whatever that means.
So, I don't want to go through your whole repertoire, but one of the things that I don't think you mentioned, and I just think it's so important, is, Disney's The Parrot Trap.
Mm-hmm.
And was it this year you had an anniversary of sorts, or was it last year?
No, we didn't have an anniversary, but we did have a cast reunion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Was the role of Meredith Blake it's so well known, and
Mm-hmm.
of generations who dig that show. Just I just can mention that anywhere and everybody seems to know that movie. So does it have a special significance to you in your career?
Well, sure. I mean, I think that's what put me on, put me on the map in a larger way. What was kind of first my real stamp was doing the remake of Get Smart for Fox. And that was the first series that I booked as a series regular. We only did like 7 episodes, but it was with Andy Dick. And because it was a remake of Get Smart, it got all this press. It was a highly coveted role, and completely unbeknownst to me, I just showed up and I was like, yeah, I just clicked with the role. And then the same thing kind of happened with The Parent Trap. I didn't really know anything about it. It was a last minute audition, and I just was like, yeah, this is so my jam. And I had done Romy and Michelle's high school reunion before that, and I had done some other pilots and whatnot. But now, and this was before social media, so I could only imagine like what would have happened had social media been around at that time. But Meredith Blake now like just has that character, and that movie has just had such long legs. I didn't expect it. I mean, I just really didn't expect it. And now I love it. And now like I was the villain at that time. And now there's an entire generation who's like, no, we want to be Meredith. So I'm like, right on. Yes, you do. I do too, actually.
She wasn't terrible. She was pretty straightforward, actually.
Well, she knew what she wanted. She knew what she wanted, and she wasn't afraid to go after it and get it. That's what I've always said about her. Because one thing that I will say about characters and okay, wait, I'm going to say what I'm going to say first, and then I have another comment on it. But you have to believe in your characters. You have to justify them. You have to believe in them. You have to accept everything they do and have a reason for everything they do. And I just think back on so many auditions that I came to you to run and to work through, and I'm just like, I don't care about this person. I don't care. Like, I don't buy it. What? And I didn't get those jobs. And of course I didn't, because I had such judgment against them. I'm like, this is dumb. This is stupid. I don't know why she's doing what she's doing. I don't get, and it's really only the ones that I can actually justify and connect with on a personal level that I actually end up doing.
Of course. Was there another comment you wanted to make on that?
No, that was it.
Is that Micah McCain floating around in the background?
It is.
Micah and I used to work in casting together. I've known Micah forever.
I know. He's been staying with me through COVID. So yeah.
Had some company. I've seen the dance parties, Miss Elaine.
We've had dance parties. We've done over 130 of them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This has been a long time, hasn't it?
It's been a long time. I mean, we're like mid-September, and it's like mid-March is that's forever ago.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's still the same year. I mean, it's all so different.
Yeah, I think everybody's mind is sufficiently messed with. And, we had an earthquake here last night. So
I heard 4.6, right?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't massive, but it definitely shook the house. I mean, you felt it. It was underneath us. So you said, in regard to the Parent Trap, it had long legs. One of the things I was going to ask you about was just longevity as an actor in general. So, for the people, tuning in, and I know you speak well to this because we taught together, we teach together sometimes. What do you, when you review from where you started to now, what do you think the key points are to keeping sane and staying in the game?
A lot of support is probably the first thing that I would say, is having a lot of support, both professionally and personally, because I've quit at least 3 times. And who knows if I'll end up quitting again, but just for my own mental sanity, I've had to be like, I don't need this business. I can walk away from it. And then, so support would be number 1. And then number 2, I have a lot of my peers who are like, you work all the time and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's because I don't really have an ego about it. I keep going back to what I call square one. Like, there's so many people I know who won't go to class, who won't read, do certain things, who won't do independent films, who won't do short films. They have all these, things that they won't do because of their past and whatnot. And it's like, I have starred in major motion pictures. I have starred in multiple series, award-winning things. And I still, I'm doing a short film. I'm filming a short film tomorrow. So I don't really, I just kind of always take it back to square one, and either you love acting and you want to do it, or you don't. And if you don't, this is not the business for you. because there's going to be highs and lows and everything in between. And if you don't just love it and you're not willing to keep showing up for it, like a relationship, it's going to be a rough ride.
I love that answer, and I love the mindset underneath it, and I'll elaborate on why. Because I know a lot of people at all levels of their career, and some at the upper spectrum, sometimes make these hard and fast rules about what they won't do anymore. And if they're comfortable with those rules, then to each your own. Mm-hmm. And fine. But I also see some people, as they start moving up, feeling whether it's because of representation or just thoughts in their own head, feeling like they have to, have certain boundaries or make certain rules or say, have limits on what they will say yes to. But I can see that they don't feel comfortable with it. And I think that's terrible for actors and creatives.
Well, I in my 20s, I had a big boom in my career when I first started out for many years. And then I got a lot of bad advice, and I had people around me saying what I should do and shouldn't do and blah, blah, blah. And I kind of stalled out in my 30s. And that's when the times that I quit, and I was just, even though I kept working, it was like, all the joy had gotten sucked out of it, because I bought into these ideas of, I shouldn't be doing that, and I should be doing this, and why not this, and why not that, and blah, blah, blah. And then finally, like in my late 30s and now in my 40s, I went back to, I just want to act. I don't care. And my agent even said, there was a time, he said, everything changed for you when, he said, we started getting called, we would call you for an audition, because I had a new agent by now. Let me also say that I had a new agent. And he said, we would just call you for appointments, and you'd be like, okay. And there was no discussions. There was no anything. I just started showing up for everything. And I still go to class. I still get coaching. And I just made it be about, truly about the process. And that's when everything shifted for me again. And now my 40s have been like my 20s were.
You're out of that.
Yeah.
I love how many friends that I have that I get to also be their fans, and I am certainly one of yours. So animal rights is a big part of your life. You are a self-identified animal rights activist. I would just like to open the door for you to say whatever you like on that topic. But then my specific question is, if you could tell anybody watching or listening one actionable thing that they could do to help the cause of animal rights, because it's something I believe in very strongly, what would that one thing be? Or at least one thing, do you know what I mean?
Sure, yeah. Well, okay, so the short and long of it is, when I started doing more roles that I became more publicly known for, inevitably you get asked to a lot of charity events, to walk the red carpet and whatnot. So I started getting asked to all these charity events, and I grew up in a very charitable, get involved household. And so I was like, yes, I'll come and I'll do it. Like anything that I could do to help, whatnot. And then I just felt like I really wasn't making a true impact. I was just showing up, and I was like really at the end of the day, who cares that I showed up? What is that really going to do? And so I sat down on my computer to figure out what my platform would be, because I wanted to make a measurable difference. I wanted to invest myself, particularly in one cause. I support many, but animal rights is definitely my core issue. And I discovered it. I watched an Undercover Fur video, and it changed my life forever. And I very much believe that outside of the business, you need a passion, you need a focus, you need to be giving back, because this industry can be so all about me, 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 me. I'm the product, I'm the manufacturer, I'm the marketing, I'm the PR, I'm the everything. That's how we are in this business. And you need a good, healthy dose of ego to be able to harness that success and to harness that energy. But you also need a good, strong dose of humility to balance that out. And I think giving back is the way to do that, to really step outside yourself. And to that end, you know, for me, animals are like the ultimate innocent creatures. They don't ever like grow up to be able to get themselves out of situations. They can't go report someone. They can't run away from someone. They can't like go tell, like they're the ultimate victims. And I really, really identified with that. And so one thing, and it's not the most popular thing because it really is a big trigger for people, but the number one way that you can help yourself, animals, and this planet is by getting animals off your plate, not eating them. The largest number of animals are affected by agriculture, animal agriculture, specifically raised for food. It is the reason why the Amazon was burning. It's the number 2 contributor to greenhouse gases behind energy, which is creating the climate crisis. And it affects over 10 billion animals in the US alone on an annual basis. So if you want to make the biggest impact, stop eating animals. That's like that's going to be for your own health, for the planet, and for animals.
Powerful. And would you say that it's now we're learning that it intersects with transmissible disease to humans?
Yes, the wet markets. They have determined that COVID is now at least the 4th major virus that has come out of wet markets, which in the new, people think like they most associate them because they're so popular in particularly Eastern and Asian cultures. But New York City alone has over 70 wet markets in it. Los Angeles has wet markets. I mean, it's its own pandemic on a daily basis.
What are your thoughts about why it is so hard to get this message over the line collectively? Because to me, it's clear, and it is to you, how these things intersect in our air, in our water, treatment of animals, and literally now our health with a virus that can spread around the globe. People are really resistant to hearing that humans are taking actions that create the problem.
Right.
You have thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I got tons, I got thoughts all day about that, but it really just comes down to education and having an open mind, because the whole reason that we're in where we are now is simply because, oh yeah, that's how I was raised. That's how I was taught. That's what you do. You eat animals because you need protein. Yeah, you need protein, but where do those animals get that protein? Not from other animals. So, a cow is a grass machine, is a plant machine. So if you want what the cow is getting, go to the grass, not the cow. But people, it's a matter of, I was at an event one time, and a woman said, do you want to believe truth or do you want to believe tradition? And it's like, at that moment, it was really powerful for me. And it's like, I want to believe truth. And a lot of times that does not look like tradition. So I just happened to grow up in a household that celebrated and pushed me to always be thinking outside the box, always challenging things. Not everybody's built that way. But artists, that's kind of part of being an artist, is that we are wired differently. We are empaths, and it is up to us to, I think anyway, I decided a long time ago, my job as an artist was to hold up a mirror to humanity. And sometimes that mirror is hard to look at. Sometimes it's silly to look at. Sometimes it's ridiculous to look at. Sometimes it's fun to look at, but my job is to hold up a mirror to humanity. And I try to As best I can. I'm not perfect. Good God, I'm not perfect, but I try to not compartmentalize my life. So my living life is of the same beliefs as my creative life, and vice versa.
Amazing.
Not to get too deep, but you know how I get. So I get real philosophical about these things.
Here, you know, we can talk about the weather anytime. No, I'm I was actually going to expand on it. While we're talking about, you know, rights, and well, with rights comes responsibilities, I think, if we want to
Yes.
keep them and protect them. I love what you say about getting clear on what it means to you to be an artist. I know a lot of actors and a lot of actors and writers and creatives who identify as an artist and have created their own personal philosophy underneath that. I know other people who don't. They are a good actor, but they're otherwise, detached from the collective. So I always love that about you. Yesterday, in an already tough year, we lost an institutional icon, may I say a legend, who is also an incredible hero to women. So we talked about animals. But one of the things that I genuinely love about you is how supportive you are of artists and in particular of other women. So what would you say to any of our female friends who are listening and watching about you surviving and thriving in this industry, with all the nonsense that goes on? That was a long run in, but to me, it's all on the same spectrum of things.
Yeah.
And I know you care about other people thriving, and that's profoundly important to me. So I'll just throw it to you from that.
Yeah. Well, I happen to practice Buddhism, and sort of the core tenet of that is ideas around suffering and happiness. And so to me, the planet, we wouldn't be in the state that we were in if everybody were truly happy. So I'm very committed to people like being what we call absolute happiness, which is not dictated by the ebbs and flows of the world around us, but like what's truly happy inside of us. So that's a big part of what motivates me in championing other people, is that I want that for them, I want that for myself, and I want that for this world. And specifically for women, and not to exclude the gentlemen who have joined us, but not but and it is in this day and age and up to this time, there are particular challenges that women face that men just don't. And some of the things that I say, women, like, be very clear about what you're willing to do and not willing to do, and hold to that. And I'll give you an example. I decided very early on that I was not going to do any gratuitous nudity. I don't have any judgment on it. I love nudity, it's fantastic. I didn't want that for myself. I wanted, like, if I was ever, and I actually really haven't done a lot of nudity because of that, but I thought if I was ever going to do it, it really needed to be like really meaningful, really tasteful and whatnot. And I've given up and lost jobs because of it. And I actually got bullied by a producer on a set once because of it. And I hadn't really talked about that much until here recently, because for me, it was just like, well, that's what I decided. And I was fine. I was fine in being strong in that. I was fine in missing jobs. I didn't, at the moment, I thought he was being ridiculous that he was trying to bully me. But then, like, now I've really learned, like, not everybody is built like me, and I have weaknesses in other areas. So, women, like, that's one area that, like, make that decision, and don't be afraid to hold to it, because there's a lot of women who they feel pressured, they do get bullied, and you worry about your career and you worry about what people are going to say. I'm going to tell you right now, there's never going to be one moment that's going to make or break you, ever. And there's never going to be one person who will make or break you. So please do not be afraid to draw your line in the sand and stick to it. Another one for me was, I was never going to do cigarette ads. I've done smoking scenes a couple of times. I don't like to do them, but that was another line in the sand for me. I wasn't going to do alcohol ads. That was a line in the sand for me. To this day, I don't wear fur. I won't even wear fake fur. And I've lost a couple of jobs. I lost one job in particular over that, actually. And I was like, why? Like, they really are so hell-bent on this woman wearing fur. And I also got kind of bullied by an executive producer over that on another show as well. So, but it's like, oh, well, then those aren't my people. That's not my tribe. That's not going to be my gigs. So that's sort of, I guess, the long way and the descriptive way of saying, of like, choose empowerment, choose yourself. One of the biggest things that I'm going to say, and because it will go for both women and men, is ultimately, like, one of the biggest ways I've drawn a line in the sand, and it took me until my 40s to do this. And it took me having great success in my 20s, like really just emotionally, frustratingly struggling through my 30s. And then in my 40s to also come to the conclusion that this business and what happens in it is no longer allowed to make me emotionally miserable. I call it my emotional sobriety. So the moment that I start, and we can all do it, I start getting depressed, I start spinning, I start ruminating, I start worrying, I start all these, worrying tactics, mental states that start to eat at my happiness, my healthiness, my self-esteem. The moment that I can become aware of that, whoa, okay, I take a step back, and then I have other tools that I deal with it. But that's kind of the biggest, most ultimate line in the sand for me, is that this business is no longer allowed to shake me out of my emotional sobriety.
Wow. That's great and powerful. I'll speak for everybody right now. Will you adopt us?
Yes, as long as you all come like potty trained and I can leave you for hours by yourself, sure.
Well, believe me, I can spend hours by myself for sure. That's a done deal. Thanks. What else? Me and the Actors Comedy Studio have been very blessed to have you as one of our guest acting instructors over the years, well, since I've opened. And, since we're in this weird time right now, so it's obviously been a while since we've been able to get into the classroom together. But the night you particularly do at ACS always blows my mind. And I think it's really helpful. And in all the classes and all the categories of kinds of things that you can teach and take in Los Angeles, I never really saw anybody do this. So I was hoping maybe we could give a little mini version of just some thoughts. So for people watching, that night is working at the studio and network level as an actor and giving some insight as well as advice on the moments at the top of the pyramid, because their pyramids are built like this for a reason. Like, this part has so many people who are asking valid questions about entry level. Where should I be online? Good photographers, agents, managers, how do I get them? How do I start? Where do I begin? And of course, we're happy to address that. But nobody really teaches you what to do up there. So if you, whatever thoughts you feel like sharing when you get to the point where you're testing for pilots, and maybe you can give them just a little bit of insight on the difference between the studio and the network and how that all ties together up there.
Sure. Yeah. So the real short of it is that, so we'll take Dynasty, since I'm on Dynasty right now. It was a little bit different because um, I was traveling around. So I ended up going, like, meeting with people in LA and then New York as well. But whatever the process leading up to the studio and the network, whether you go into casting and then producers, whether you go into producers, once, 5 times, whatever it may be. I mean, nowadays you don't hear, I mean, back in the day, like, there could be times where, I mean, I heard guys and gals like going, yeah, I went in 7 times for these producers. And I'm like, oh my God, 7 times? I think the most I ever did was maybe 3. But however many times, in order, like, to become a series regular on a show, you have to be approved by both the studio and the network. And the studio is basically the company, the entity that is producing and in charge of the day-to-day mechanics and the running of the show. And then the network is the entity that airs it, that, distributes it to the world. So you have to be approved by both. And now with self-tapes, I mean, the past 3 shows, so I did Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll on FX with Dennis Leary, and I put myself on tape. That tape was sent to studio and network. The second show that I did was only the pilot, and that was also with Dennis Leary, and that was a straight offer, but I still had to be approved by the network, by the studio and the network. And then Dynasty, I went in for the producers and I redid a tape because they had new material, and then that got sent around to studio and network. But you can also, if we ever go back, like, before that, I mean, I can't believe my last 3 shows, or my last 2 shows and a pilot, have been from either tapes or an offer, where every other time before that, you always go into the room. So you just have to be approved by both. And I love self-tapes because I can get it exactly the way I want it and feel good about sending off. Because to me, it kind of goes with my emotional sobriety mandate of myself, that I decided a successful audition was when I walk out of the door and I don't hate myself. Because I would walk out the door and kick myself so many times for, like, what I could have done, what I should have done, what I said, what I didn't say, blah, blah, blah. And so if I can walk out, or I can do any audition where I was like, you know what, I did exactly what I wanted and I can't control the rest, like, to me, that's a successful audition. And with self-tapes, I can really have control over that. So I like self-tapes and I like putting them together, and especially knowing when they're going to a studio or a network, because again, like, I just do exactly what I want with them. And so whether you're doing a self-tape, or certainly when you're going into the room, and when you get to the level of studio and network, it's only down to like 3, at the most, maybe 5 people. So, like, you're even that much closer to, like, actually getting a potentially really, like, juicy, great job. And your insides kick up, the stakes just naturally become higher. You start fantasizing, and you have to want it enough to put your all into it and to be passionate about it. But you also can't put so much into it that, like, you just get crazy over it and lose yourself. So it's this really fine balance. And I have just learned that when it gets to that level, I think the number one thing at that point is managing your nerves and your expectations. And it takes a lot of effort and energy to do that. and to also throw fun in the mix and to like make sure you're having fun, because you're also at that point, you're signing a contract. You sign a contract for a minimum of 5 years on this series. When it's called testing. So when you're testing for a series, you're signing up for a minimum of 5 years with a base salary, and you're already negotiating your percentages that you get a raise each season. So it's a lot. And otherwise, like other than those types of things, like without, like you asked, this is the short version of it, because there's a lot of details, is the types of auditions, who shows up, what to do, and all of that we really dig into in that other class. But kind of aside from that, it's almost like any other audition. Like you almost treat it like any other audition. Because at the end of the day, it is another audition. There's just very specific elements that end up going into it.
Yeah, the actual, like, looking at the deal memo itself is always the thing that stands out to me. That you mentioned the amount of time, but it's also the amount of pay, and we might imagine or fantasize whatever that is, but when you're at that point, you literally need to see it and sign off on it literally before you go into the room. And
yes. Or before they watch your tape. Yes.
Yeah. So, I just think it's something to be prepared for, and it's good for people to know, because sure, it may be aspirational for, a lot of folks to think to get from where they are to there, but it happens for people. It happens for people every day. So I think we should just talk about that part too, not just the how to get started.
Yeah. Well, just on that, I will expand too, because, whether you're doing background, whether you're doing co-star, guest star, recurring, series regular, with each bump up comes more pay. And there's nothing like money, and potentially a lot of it, to really start pressing into our buttons of insecurity and fear. We think like it's such a great thing. We think like, oh yeah, I want to make $1 million. Well, do you really? Because there's a lot of energy that goes with $1 million. There's a lot of responsibility that goes with $1 million. And when you start getting at those levels, it can start pressing into our insecurities and our self-worth, and what we will allow, the level and the amounts of success we will really allow in our lives. And that's when people start talking about self-sabotage and all that, and like, we could go down a whole other road about that, but really it just comes down to what the amount of energy that you are really willing to allow in your life. And I'm going to say, doing Dynasty, because this is the first time I've done a boatload of pilots. I've been on other series, and I've done tons of recurring role, but this is the first time I've been on an ongoing show that has a full 22 episodes. And even this, it's like, oh, Elaine, like, wow, I noticed, like, yeah, it's a different sensation. I'm stretching more from it. And you've got to be ready for it. It's a lot of energy to hold.
I've seen it, and I've had an evolution of thought on this very topic myself, as primarily an acting coach, and all the way to the point that I just say directly when appropriate. You're when you're training yourself as an actor, we know that they're called lead roles. Take it literally. It means, are you a leader? Because my version of what you're saying is, whether you've see it this way or not, to carry a show or to be a lead ensemble actor in a show, people look up to you. And so there's an amount of money, and you talked about the energy that goes with that. But yeah, we have to ask ourselves, do I have the capacity to absorb and carry that energy? Can I absorb and carry the responsibility? There are press requirements. There are time requirements outside of the time that you have to work in, all the hours of training. I think just like an Olympic athlete, or not just for, that moment that you grab the gold medal, it's so that you can handle all of the other things that go along with it. And it's not that they're bad things. It's just that they require you to build yourself as a person as much as it does to build as a performer. So when I hear lead role, to me, it's synonymous, like leader of the show, or at least one of the leaders of the show, because people
Yes.
are looking at you that way. Am I wrong about that?
No, yes. I mean, as you say that, it's like the reason that I'm sitting here is because I have almost 3 decades of experience now, going through all that. This is why I can talk the way that I do. This is why I know these things. And I, when I got my very first series on Get Smart, I was so not ready for everything. That's, I think, kind of another reason why I feel like I kind of stalled out in my 30s. Like I just wasn't ready for everything that came along with all of that. And then Superstar, The Parent Trap, Romeo and Michelle's House, all these things happen. And it was like, whoa. And there's a lot to learn if you don't have, which is why I say, like, going back to the first thing you ask about the longevity of a career is support. I just didn't have the support. I didn't have the people around me sharing what you so generously share, and what, all the different experts that you bring in. I didn't have an ACS to go to. I had classes, but I think we're now kind of all getting a little bit more savvy to help support one another, which is a good thing.
Hopefully. Who did you look up to when you were younger, whether you knew them personally or actors who came before you? Did you have role models or?
My role model always growing up was Wonder Woman. I loved Wonder Woman. I had her comics, and then I loved the TV show. And now the reboot and the movies. Oh, she makes my heart sing.
Gal Gadot, and I did say her name right. Whew, she's something, huh?
Yeah, I can't wait for the new one to come out.
I cried. I cried like a baby after Wonder Woman. I saw it at the Vista Theater over in Silver Lake. I was sobbing. I was like, this movie deserves it. Stupid. I don't know. But I just thought she just annihilated that screen.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. I got time for one more question, and then there's a surprise speed round coming at you.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and I do want to ask this one. I have more, but this is the last one that I really want to get to. And you might have addressed it anecdotally a little bit, but I'm going to ask it head on. Has your approach to the work itself evolved over the years?
I mean, yeah, yes, because just like the deepening of my knowledge about the business itself and navigating the business, my knowledge about my capabilities have deepened. So, I used to have, prime example, I used to have a lot of judgment around being vulnerable. I've always, played a lot of icy characters, but now my characters are having much more depth and well-roundedness to them, like Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll. That was just an absolute dream. And that character, she was a tough, sassy broad, but yet she also had like deep love for Dennis's character, and she had a lot going on, and she was a mother figure. And so, like, there's just a lot that I can play now that I wouldn't have played. And I'm more in love with acting now than ever. And I still go to class. I've still learned different techniques. I have a very large toolbox, and I still love adding to it. And I think some of that just also, like, I think I'm just more comfortable in my skin, and I'm just more kind of all around confident in life. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely fundamentals that are the same. Like, you know, the relationship in the scene, the subtext, where your environment, where you are, you know, there's certain questions and certain things that I approach that are just, I think, universal. But how I do that, I'll maybe do a little differently now.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm looking at the time. I want to give our guests a chance to ask some questions. I do.
Yeah, I'm okay on time. I don't know if anybody else is. I don't know how long this is supposed to go, but I'm okay on time.
Speed round. It goes into Sunday, so I hope.
We're gonna have a slumber party all together.
We're gonna watch some of your movies while you do live commentary on your.
Oh dear God! No, oh Lord. Do I have to? Do I have to?
You're like, well, I could have done that differently.
Oh, for sure.
That is hilarious. So Ashley, for all of my guests, and again, thank you for joining us. I do this little speed round. It's just stimulus response. I'm just going to ask away. First thing that comes to your head, we're just going to go these really quick and
Okay.
see what's in your psyche.
Oh God.
Yeah. What does comedy mean to you?
Being funny.
If you could change one thing about the industry, what would it be?
The closed-mindedness.
Do you think of yourself as successful?
100%.
What's a funny word?
Fuck.
What's more important, self-expression or true respect from your peers?
Self-expression.
Is there anyone not invited to your funeral?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Last.
You didn't ask who.
I was biting my tongue. Do you care to drop a name? Or give a strong? Okay, but there was a no. Okay, so interesting. Last question. Is there anything, in your opinion, every human being on the planet has a responsibility to do?
Yeah, be kind.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, good. So we have a question from Georgia. Can you give some insight as to
somebody named Georgia, or from Georgia, the state? They are in Georgia.
Is named Georgia.
Howdy, Georgia.
And you have to continue to speak in a thick Southern accent.
Okay, I can do that.
What goes on in a general meeting for agents or producers? Yeah, what happens when you just show up just to meet?
Yeah, so here's something I learned the real hard way. Make those appointments short. Like, don't go in there thinking like, oh, you're gonna like sit down and have a cup of tea. You might have a cup of coffee with them, you might sit down, whatever, but have somewhere to go. They are busy people, you are busy people. Okay, so like, have somewhere to go, have a whole life happening other than this industry. So expect it to be short, expect to like connect. Don't just talk about the industry. If you're being invited into a general, because it's really a big deal for somebody to give up their time to meet with people. It's a really big deal. They genuinely want to get to know you. So it's not just about the industry. They have places to be, other things to be doing. So do you. And then make sure you follow up with a thank you note, a handwritten thank you note. I keep a running Excel spreadsheet of everyone who I've met. And then I do my best to stay in some form of contact with them. And then one of the first things I should have said is, when you go in, and this is for anything, for an audition, a general, whatever, know who you're going in to meet. if you walk in there and you don't know what they've done, you don't know what they do, you don't know what they're in charge of, what? So I look up everybody before I go in to meet with them. And especially because I can't tell you how many times I've looked somebody up and it's like, oh my, I did that job with them. I didn't because, sometimes there'll be 13 producers on a thing. And then no matter and I am a master networker, but there's still times that it's like, oh, I didn't realize oh, they were the co-producer on that. And now they're the executive producer on something. So you never know when you've also met them at some point in your life.
We have to keep our heads up in that arena. That was great advice.
Yeah.
And I hope you all took note of that. Yeah. And if they're not busy, whoever you're meeting with, whatever this person is, if they're not busy, that's information for you, because you want to know busy people in this industry. What's the best mindset when meeting with the studio and network executives? And she adds, what are they looking for aside from nailing the role?
Okay, so wait. So when you're saying meeting, are you saying are we talking auditions or generals?
Well, I think onto the new question, I think it goes back to when we were talking about working at the top of the period.
So for the testing?
Yeah.
Mm.
Dealing with executives.
Okay, well, so when you go to a test, when you're testing and you're dealing with the studio and the network, you don't actually deal with anybody, your representatives. They legally cannot negotiate with you. So you have to have an agent. You have to have either an agent or an attorney. It has to be somebody who is sanctioned to do that within the state of California or whatever state you're working in. So you won't be for Get Smart, I was working with a manager. Managers can't negotiate. So that's how I got my first agent. The manager called up and said, hey, I got a client who's got a screen test. You want to do the deal? And it was sure. And then I just kept working with the agent. So your representatives will do all the negotiating. They'll handle all of the appointment times, all of the notes, if you get sent notes. And then when you go in, so if you're doing an actual physical walk into the room test, there'll be 30 people in the room. Expect 20 to 30 people in the room. And you just hi, how's everyone doing? Great. Okay. And you get to work. There's no real chit chat. There's no getting to know you. You don't want to really look at anybody in the eye. It makes them uncomfortable. You're going in to perform. So when it gets to the testing level, you have very, very little to no interaction with the executives.
Good. I'm going to throw in my own question. It's a question from Gunnar. Do you have any kind of either be it a ritual or outline or kind of flow chart for when you show up to this set, even as a lead, and it's just everybody's first day? Do you have any kind of system?
Well, I have rituals for self-tape. I have rituals for going in the room. I have rituals for table reads. I mean, I'm a ritualistic person and I can kind of sometimes be borderline superstitious. So yeah, I have a whole different set of, look at, I have a whole set of different kind of behaviors that I do to get ready just in the mindset. And when I show up for work, it's almost like going to school for me. So I pack my bags the night before and I have everything that I want ready to go. I have 2 alarms and I put an alarm outside of my bedroom because I don't want to accidentally push sleep and go back to sleep. I double check that they're on, that they're not going to go off, that the batteries are plugged in, whatever. And then I time out. So if I have to be there, I work backwards. So if I have to be there at 10, then I want to get there at a certain time to get set up. I have all my lines highlighted, whatever. And then I work backwards from there, from whatever else I need to do, including perhaps stop at Starbucks to get a tea on the way. So I work backwards.
It's how successful people need to think. A lot of it is just being there on time and not being a problem for someone.
Yeah, 100%. It's really, there's, you all will learn as you go along. There's a saying, no's come quick, yeses are harder to come by. And so you don't want to, I think one of the names of the game is just don't give them any reason to say no, because those no's come very quick. It's real easy. People will get fired for saying yes. So if you've gotten a yes somewhere, it's very, 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 very valuable.
It's true. All right. So we have a question here from London Garcia. A lot of people are
Wait, London?
London. They're named places.
I love this.
I'm changing my name to France.
I changed my name to Tennessee.
You are Tennessee. Would you still choose to live in Atlanta if you had a lot of work in LA? Asking because I'm an LA native looking to enjoy other areas while still pursuing the business.
The business has really shifted. I started my career here in Atlanta, Georgia, so I'm kind of coming full circle now. I lived in LA for 26 years, and in the past 3 to 5 years, I lived in New York. And then I came back to Atlanta from New York, and you can kind of live anywhere now. And with all the self-tape, I think especially if you're newer in your career and you're just starting out, it's good to be in some kind of market, whether that be here in Atlanta, Chicago. I think Austin even had Nashville. There's some new kind of emerging markets that are not as big as LA or New York, but still have value. And so that just kind of depends on sort of what you really want for your career and what you want your quality of life to be. I always had a very difficult time really, truly enjoying Los Angeles. So I'm happy to be back in Atlanta. And as of now, the COVID has really kind of forced me into think about, if Dynasty wasn't happening, would I stay here in Atlanta? And for now, I probably would. I'm definitely not coming back to LA to live. I don't right now want to go back to New York to live. Atlanta's probably the most viable place, and it has a really booming market here. So yeah. Think about what you want for your career, what you really see for your career, but don't discount your quality of life. It used to be when I first started out, you really had to be in LA. I had to do that because self-tape wasn't a thing. Back in my day, we didn't have internet. I got a phone call. This is a phone. I got a phone call with an answering machine when I got appointments, auditions, and that I had to know. And then eventually I got a pager, and my agent could pay me, and I would go to a pay phone to call in. And then we got cell phones that were about this size. Hello. And then we got the internet, so everything's changed now.
Me too, me too, me too. How do we not look like we're 1,000 years old? It's so long ago.
Well, I sold my soul to the devil. I'm 1,000 years old on the inside, so.
Well, I'm 29, so suck it.
Still? Again?
Till I don't want to be. It's my life. Oh my God, I remember the pagers. What else? I was just gonna elaborate on that, in case anybody else is wondering, because there's been such a huge evolution on your very thorough answer about the different markets, but now it's gotten to the point when it first began, the hubs of production, they would shoot in Atlanta or Vancouver, New Mexico, and all these places, but they still were bringing the bulk of the actors, even guesting actors from Los Angeles. And now it's completely flip-flopped. There is enough talent firmly situated permanently in Atlanta, for example, that if you're going out for even a co-star or a guest star, they just want to work with that market, because why do you need to fly somebody from Los Angeles to say just a couple of lines? And there was a time when they still felt like we want an experienced actor to do it. But the talent pools are growing around these hubs. So I know a lot of people who are moving out of town to get their stronger beginning credits and then build on that and then maybe come back, or as you say, not. Because then if you get known, it's casting, tape, salt. Well, they're not tapes. I try not to say the word anymore. Your digital recording can be sent anywhere.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So does anybody have any other questions? Now would be a good time. And if you don't, that's absolutely okay too. I mean, we've talked a little bit about, the changes in the self-taping. Is there anything else that is on your radar that is changed over the last however many years, or that's of the moment? Because we always try to stay current on how show business even works, because it changes a lot.
Yeah, it
You
does.
laughingly talked about some of them right there, but what would you say to somebody who's just getting started out today?
Well, the one thing that I always say is like, just, really make sure, like, really dive. Oh God, sorry. Hey, ow. I'm being-
I,
um, I know. I'm poopy. Um, like, think of this as a relationship. You're getting into a relationship, and you're getting into,
like
hopefully, what?
like that relationship.
Yes, like that relationship right there. A very intimate, in your face, invading your personal space relationship. Um, and, and so treat it as such. I think a lot of people, it's a lot of people get into relationships for the wrong reason. And they end up, in relationships that can be dull and not really good for them. They can be in abusive relationships. They can be in thriving, beautiful, incredible relationships, and then all kinds of others. So I think this business is really no different than that. And you need to kind of evaluate every step of the way, like, how healthy is this relationship? Because there's been a lot of times when my relationship with this industry has not been healthy. And there were definitely times I thought I had to leave the industry in order to get healthy. But I learned that I just needed to kind of shift my perspective. And that took real digging and work, and it was hard, but it ultimately was worth it. If there's ever a point in time that I feel like, what, no, it's no longer worth it, I'll get out. I've proven to myself, like, I will leave this relationship if it's really no longer good for me. But sometimes relationships, like in my case, they are a good relationship. You have to work a little harder at it. And and then sometimes it's not. So, look at it that way, because it's a living, breathing thing that you're doing. You're never, ever, 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 ever going to get to a point where you've landed, where you've coasted, with this idea of making it. And back in the day of, the studio system, that was when people would scoop you up, sign you on a contract, and you would, like, work for the rest of your life. That doesn't exist anymore. So there is no making it. There's no landing point. It's constantly evolving. I have over 150 credits, and I still audition for things. I still book. I still don't get more than I do get with these auditions. And so there's going to be good days and bad days. And are you in it for the long haul? And if you're not, find something else, because it's going to be torturous otherwise.
Yeah, for sure. I was there for some of the quitting, by the way, you guys. So she's not, let's just, she'll go. But actually, I think it is healthy in any relationship, even if it's a good one, to at least ponder it not being there for you, because it helps us understand ourselves better and understand if we are self-reliant, if we need to be. So, you know, you don't always have to walk. It's not always black and white. There's a gray area of going, okay, what if just let me at least explore that for my own mental health. And I like the way and the depth with which you talk about keeping yourself healthy throughout this journey, because there's so much want involved that self-care can get left on the back burner. And I know you think it's important, and I do too. That's why I try to teach power as much as I teach comedy. Mm-hmm. Because you have to know how to step up to, well, really people and relationships who are, I think, mostly good. We know that there's a couple of rotten ones, but most of the people I've met in this whole experience are really wonderful. They're just busy and they do have high expectations. And if someone's made it in any facet of this industry, they probably don't really have time to suffer fools. And I still think that that's compatible with being a nice person. It's just, it can be stressful.
Yeah. Yeah. Most everybody is just like we are. They're just they're trying to get their projects made. They're trying to get their, you know, their next gig. And it's, you know, we're all just trying.
We're all just trying. And maybe people, you know, they make this mythical more than it really needs to be, because they are just people paying their mortgage, trying to put their kids in school, and, you know, just check off the next box on being alive. There's nothing really all that precious about it. It's a union town. People forget all of this work. It's union work. It's very largely blue collar.
Yeah.
You know, just with a lot of stardust. So a couple more quick questions, then I think we'll wrap. So you mentioned self-tapes, says Annie. Annie is a normal name that is not a place. Good name, Annie. You mentioned self-tapes being fun because you'll do it until you get it right and you have the power to send what you like. At any time, do you give yourself a time limit to avoid overdoing it or overthinking it?
I don't. I mean, I know like there's different schools of thought around that, but I don't. I get it to, and not even right. I get it until I'm satisfied. I do it until I'm satisfied. And then I go back and I very tediously watch, you know, all of them. And sometimes my early, you know, sometimes it's like, oh, you know, I didn't need to do it that 10th time. The second time I did it was great. But then there's just also sometimes where I was like, oh, thank God I did all of that because that 10th time was perfect. Yes, great. And I send it off. So for me, it's about, you know, I do it until I'm satisfied. Now, if I'm paying someone, so let's say, you know, if I'm like, hey, Gunnar, I want you to work on this and I do a self-tape with Gunnar, I'm going to be a little bit more expedient and expeditious about it because, or judicious, sorry, about it because I'm paying someone to help me and I don't like our time, my money, all of that. But otherwise, if I have just a friend who I'm reading with and I'm at home, I just do it. I have a very clear idea. I know exactly how I want it to be framed. I know exactly what I want to wear. I know what I want to do with it. And I don't stop until I'm satisfied.
One of the things, this just popped up in my head, it's just an observation. One of the things that I've always loved, you know, seeing, you know, helping you prep for auditions or whatever, is you bring exactly the right amount of a little bit of theater into your auditions, still camera friendly, still appropriate for the room, but you're not afraid to put on a little hair, a little lip, a little business. Well, because people just hear all these rules and there's, you know, there are guidelines, but I've known you long enough that I've seen you just grow to take more and more, and you've already said it yourself, so I'm just reflecting it back, but you just take absolute control and ownership of those moments for yourself. And I saw that grow over.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's far less about what they want and far more about what the piece needs, what the character really wants, and then what I want to do with that character. Because we hear it a lot, but it really is true. Like it boggles my mind. And let me tell you something. I've been doing this almost 3 decades now on a professional level. Getting paid. I've done nothing else for 27 years now. And really, like, by and large, unless you're like, I don't know, like Meryl Streep or Johnny Depp, unless you're just at that level, they really just want to see you. And like you connect to the piece. They don't want to see you put too much on with it. And it just so happens that I end up playing a little sort of theatrical type characters like Alexis Carrington, or I played this other character that I recorded on a show that aired this summer called Paradise Lost. And her name was DeVoe Chifflet. Really the character's name, and one of the reasons I got hired is because they were like, the character's name is DeVoe Shiflet. But I was like, oh no, DeVoe would never let herself be called Shiflet. It was Chifflet. And so, I just happened to kind of play these sort of larger than life characters sometimes. And I go with it. That's what I have fun doing. So have fun with it. Let them see you,
Well, we forget sometimes, it's, and that's part of the journey for so many people, is to move from the place where you think you're pleasing somebody or getting it right for their brain, and learning what you just said, which is what they're doing is they're shopping for appropriate, well-trained choices that are a reflection of each woman who comes in. Still accurate to the character, accurate to the story, but you really are selling and offering your take. And that's, just to stitch together the whole conversation we've had about taking care of yourself and then feeling empowered. Because you're not doing this for anyone else ever. Even when they hire you, you still do it for you.
Yeah.
I think is the bottom line. Well, I think that is a good note to end on. So I have one thing to give you before we go. So I thought this through when I was outlining my chattables, and I was like, I just would like to feel like I give you something for your time. So here's what I have. These are power thought cards from Louise Hay, who we love. We love Louise Hay. So I'm just going to pick one for you and read it for you. So I'm just flip through them, and at a certain point say stop.
Stop.
Okay. This is the one for you. So for whatever reason, in my opinion, the universe thought you needed to hear this today.
Yes.
Well, this is such a gimme. I am worth loving. I do not have to earn love. I am lovable because I exist. Others reflect the love I have for myself. Well, if that's true, that might be because I'm reflecting the love that I have for you to you, because I think you are a doll. You are one of my favorite people on the planet, and I love and respect you greatly. And every time we work together, I always make a point of letting you know, because we need to tell each other. You're a wonderful.
Likewise.
You're a wonderful person, and you treat actors and artists well in particular, and that matters to me because we can be vulnerable when we put our heart on our sleeve and our necks on the line and dare to try, and you're always supportive of all of us who try to do that. So thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, anything for you, Gunnar, and everyone out there. I'm sad I didn't get to see you, but I'm so happy to share this time with you. And thank you for signing up and for coming in and joining us. I'm a huge fan. I've been there from the beginning. I've been there even before ACS. I've been there when ACS was a twinkle in Gunnar's eye, and
I was pregnant with ACS.
Yes, and I just love how much you've grown, and I always love being a part of it. And thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So have so much fun going back to work. I know you'll be safe. I know it'll be a joy. And we're going to hold good thoughts for you and Alexis Carrington.
Woohoo! Alexis Carrington Colby.
We were there yet with your version. So
yeah.
Okay. Well, good deal. So take care, Miss Elaine, and much love to you and all of the pets at the ranch.
Thank you. I know everybody. Thanks for bearing with us. We got everybody sort of finally calmed down a little.
Good. All right. Well, you're the best. Take care, and we will see you soon.
Okay. Love you.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.